Oh my god, what if I didn't say I was ready? Welcome everybody to the Aniki, the esports talk show, where we discuss the ongoing happenings of esports, culture, and news. I
Happening.
am happenings. I was gonna say happenings, but I felt like I said that in the beginning, so I paused for a second because I was worried to say the same word twice.
Mm-mm.
I'm your host, Draconis, and I'm joined here with Stragwa.
No.
I was like, oh.
Combination of letters.
I was like, if I kind of hum it or sing it, maybe he won't notice that I butchered it. I was like, oh, you noticed. Oh, wrecked. So, how you doing, sir?
Oh, pretty good. Can't complain. Apparently, there's a new Dota patch, and I haven't read it yet. But I reserve the right to read it after the Aniki. I don't want to, because it's a little bit ceremonious. You kind of delve into it, the whole thing, read line by line. I don't want to do it while
Do
I'm
you
still talking here.
do you find that it's just like you get really intense with it and you look for like the nitty gritties and you
Oh
analyze
yeah.
it?
Oh yeah, like an example would be like last patch they changed one of Bat Rider's abilities instead of being a straight piece of damage to a damage over time, and it changed the hero quite a lot, like fundamentally. But it was just kind of one of those things that you wouldn't really notice it if you just kind of glossed over. There was like, oh, it does the same amount of damage just over time. But the way the hero works is he has a different ability that amplifies every instance of damage by like 50. So it turns out to be a really big deal and completely changes the hero and his viability. But it's kind of one of those just like one-liners that totally changes how you play him. So
We
it's
should.
one.
I feel like at some point in our existence, we should have a show that's just dedicated to the patch updates of games. Like
There are many of those.
I'm
We should
sure,
have one, but there are many of
like
those. Yeah.
I'm sure there are, but I feel like when we get a little bit older and we get like a little bit of a big boy pants on in terms of the stuff, I feel like we should totally have a show
Yeah.
that dedicates uh, at least a chunk of time to discuss patch updates and what they mean, right? So
You could honestly, there's so many fine details and interactions, excluding the giant changes like adding heroes and such, that you could talk about, that you could easily have a show for something
uh,
like that.
absolutely. I'm gonna. It's funny. I was gonna wait until. Actually, no. I'll wait till after critical update. So critical update, since it's really short, and then we'll jump into one of my first interesting things that popped up, and I think you're gonna have a good laugh. But next week is the last episode for the year of the Aniki. We go into break right afterwards. Bear will return. I did it this time. Um, Bear will be on the show next week. uh, and we'll have our trio back together. So I'm super
Is
excited.
he gonna be back?
I knew it. I was like, oh,
Yeah,
he's
then
gonna.
I'm just wondering if he's back or if
You
it's
know what?
just a
Actually,
one.
I guess he's no longer Bear. So it's Josh will be back. Josh Uwa will be back. Um, I actually didn't realize how dumb that was to say his name out loud. Uh, Josh Uwa will be back and make our trio complete again, and I'll have to
Yes.
look for a third host to take his place. Uh, so looking ahead to that next part, I think we'll be doing a 2015 year in review. We'll talk about some of our favorite stories from 2015 and some of our favorite moments in esports from 2015, and what are we looking forward to seeing in 2016.
Oh,
So
gonna be
it's
a good
pretty
episode.
much it will be a whole wrap up, and it's going to be live and in person with everybody.
Oh, an Iki exclusive. Never been done before.
I love the Ernie Key exclusives. It's just um, it's we've released so much valuable information here. I feel like our audiences should feel as grateful as I feel to have the opportunity
I
to hear it
personally, I
first.
can't wait for them when we reveal something for the first time on the Aniki, and like I get so informed and educated. It's I can't wait. It's what I live for. To find out what I can hear on the Aniki. What a first.
You know what
We
though?
should.
I feel like everyone should be excited.
We
Is
should we
that
should do
stuff?
that for the next episode. We should have like a compilation of our Aniki exclusives.
Just like any key exclusives
Yep.
in review.
Yep. All the things that you heard for the first time ever here on the Aniki
Oh, I just
in
want
like
to. I
one
want to. You
talk.
know what I'd like to do? Get a compilation of all Bear's sort of Hearthstone shit talks, and it's like
Yeah.
Hearthstone is crappy. Hearthstone is this, and he's like, what? But
Yeah, yeah. No, it's not RNG. No, it is an esport. Wow. And we
Illuminati
it, it
confirmed.
it can just be like laid up against the Twitch numbers for Hearthstone. It'd be hilarious.
Totally have that. So jumping into the first things, there's not very much other than that. G2, there was a statement that just popped up through the Twitter feeds that Gaming Paradise isn't paying out.
Just let you guys mull on that one while I sip some coffee.
So if you guys don't remember,
I'm shocked.
if very few people should be, but just in case you guys do not remember, Gaming Paradise is the tournament that happened in what was the actual?
Maldives.
Was it what?
No, it
No,
wasn't the Maldives. It was
Maldives was actual
Maldives was
Maldives.
like it was a relatable event. No, it was like some weird Scandinavian country, if I recall, like just south of Russia, definitely Eastern European kind of
So they rented
locale.
out a whole resort,
Hold
if I
on,
remember correctly, a full
hold on.
resort. Oh,
We got
you
the
gonna look it up?
information coming
Oh,
in.
the
Oh, I
information's.
know.
Oh, our newswire,
Yeah,
newswire,
that's it. Our live feed.
coming on in. Like we
Yep,
just need a little ticker that goes by.
yep. This person is single-handedly responsible for the most Aniki exclusives.
Um, so while we get that information, I will recant what I remember. But they rent out a resort, a full resort,
Yeah,
and
an island
was
practically.
it? Oh no, I think you like the whole island. No, the resort on the island, but it might as well felt like an island for most people. Um, they rented it out, and everybody they brought CS:GO and Dota 2, and it was riddled with problems from what we could see from the tweets.
Yeah, well,
CS:GO.
casters were basically asking for rescue. Please
I,
send help.
If I
Like,
remember correctly, the players had their passports confiscated at some point because the hotel rooms hadn't been paid for. Uh,
yep, that was one of the many things. The entire Dota part of the event got canceled.
yep.
That was something. Players had passports confiscated because the hotel rooms weren't paid for. Food wasn't paid for. Some players got sick from the food. There
Well,
was,
getting sick from the food it may not be an organizer fault, but that all ties into a crappy time overall to every.
yeah. Personally, when it comes to this type of event, I don't think that there's anything that isn't the organizer's fault. I just gonna put that out there.
Um, Bringing it back home. So essentially, what we're looking at is they are not paying out. Right? They
Yeah,
claim that the company has no assets and they're declared bankruptcy.
bankruptcy. That's they had a bank account. I This is bewildering. Okay.
So,
It's just bankruptcy sounds so much more dramatic. It sounds like they're an actual organization with payroll and
well, I imagine
that
they
does
probably
banking. Like,
it formed a corporation, and then it's like,
well, no, I only say that because some of the teams were struggling to get their flights paid for on account of the company credit card having a $3,000 limit. Um, so that that'll that could be problematic. I think when you're trying to book flights for a team of five.
so it's actually it's funny because we've heard this story before, many a times, like this kind of story where a company is
Oh, I
just
see.
like, a company is just like, look,
Yep.
you've played in our event. The event did not make us any money.
Oh yeah, people are still waiting for WCA to pay out from last year. I mean,
And I get it. You know what? As an organizer myself, I get it. Right? Money, some like it's. Sometimes you're like, money is all over the place, and but there's a limit. I would imagine for like a year can be an excessive amount, but it's one
uh,
of those.
I
Well,
mean,
I
okay. Realistically speaking, a year isn't unheard of. It's happened. It doesn't not saying that it's okay. But what I am
I
gonna
think
say,
it actually depends if you set the precedent. If you say that
no,
this
no.
prize
The
pool is
business
gonna
world has
pay
set the precedent. I'm sorry. The precedent has been set long before esports was happening. We don't get to make up the rules just because we're a fresh industry. Like people have been paying out either it's prize money, winnings, paychecks, salaries for years.
true,
Esports is,
true.
it. So
Well, okay, if you win the lottery, when do you get the money? Right away? You don't get it right away. I feel like there's like a waiting period of a certain amount.
uh, I'm fairly certain it's all like relatively quickly. Like
Okay,
it's not a year. Either way, like
that's sort of
sixty
a large amount of
days,
money.
60 days to like 6 month, I think
Like
is a
I think 90 days is the limit. To be honest, like I think
okay.
like
Okay.
90 days is one of those like limits you have when it comes to
Yeah,
paying the prize pool.
you'd like to keep it within that amount of time. I mean,
Yes.
I could see it going over sometimes, just because like keep in mind this is international business, right? Like tournament in China, players South African, like things happen, right? Like it's
You know what it
uh
really is though. When it comes to sponsors, it really and let's go tie into our next conversation because sponsors
I
themselves
see what you did
pay.
there.
It comes down to sponsors,
That's
and
okay.
sometimes not sometimes actually. I shouldn't even say sometimes. Most large sponsors don't pay right away. They just simply do not pay out right
Yeah, but
away.
that comes down to organizer. That comes down to the organizer being
It's
responsible for
what
having
comes out
this.
it comes to the organizer's pull. Like if an organizer is a large company, they could be like, look, I set this terms. If you want to do business with me, you're on my terms.
Yeah,
If you're obviously the person that's scraping at the sponsor's will, right? And the sponsor's gonna be like, look, I set the terms and I pay out when I pay out, right?
yeah,
That's so you're right. It does come down to the organizer, but that boils down to a, I guess, relationship with the organizer versus the sponsor, and b, like the actual organizers pull,
hmm
because I'm sure ESL tells their sponsors to a level like, look, we accept payments within this time. Do you want to be on our platform? You're gonna pay me out like within this time. I'm but someone who is smaller who's gonna be like, look, yeah, we'd like to sponsor money. What's your time period? We'd like you to pay in this, and the sponsor will be like, well, we'll try,
yeah.
right? Uh,
At the same time, I mean, sponsors, like you said, for the big ones, they have like standard payout periods, which are like, they'll tell you. It's not like they're like, we'll pay you between 60 and 160 days. Like if you're an organizer, it is kind of on you to have your shit together. Um, and with that respect, if you know that you're not getting the prize money, at least inform your players ahead of time. But that's not even really touching on the case here, which is just like,
No,
well,
this case is completely different. I don't
yeah,
know if Gaming Paradise had sponsors. I don't recall sponsors. Probably G2A.
um,
If I was to
they,
take a quick
yeah,
stab in the dark, in that G2A, because they sponsor everything that crawls
yeah,
on this planet.
yeah,
Um, but bringing it back to the story, essentially the company is saying we're not paying out our prize pool. If you try to make us pay out our prize pool, we're already declaring bankruptcy, and players
yeah,
will most likely not get a dime. So you might as well not try for it.
yeah. They're basically saying don't bother, and I mean, really, there's nobody to enforce this or to force them to do anything, right?
And this is, I don't know. Half of me wants to start into a whole discussion about that this is a problem in the industry, but we all know it. Everybody knows it. We all know it. I'm
Yeah,
not going to go into beat this to. We
this
know
happens in
this.
other industries. This
This
happens all the time.
that an event organization is just like, eh,
Yeah,
fold
the
up.
well, not so much the necessarily the event organization. That's just one,
Yeah, I know. You're using more of a broad sense of organizations as a whole can just be
yeah,
like,
going bankrupt and stuff like that. It
yeah,
happens more often than people would like to admit, I think.
absolutely. Um, so let's go into our more of our pre-planned topics. Starting it up. I don't know if I want to talk. Oh, we'll talk about WCS because that's something is kind of exciting to me and disappointing at the same time.
Okay.
So, giving everyone the rundown. WCS in jeopardy? Question mark? Question mark? Question mark? WCS, if people do not know of our audience, is the World Championship of StarCraft. That's Blizzard's owned league. We've recently been informed as a community that uh, by Richard Lewis, it was reported on by the first time that there's a possibility that WCS will be radically overhauled. And
Right.
when we're saying the radically overhauled, the 2015 system of WCS was there's Premier League, which is the main league, and other leagues would pay it like you would participate in, and you would get points, and that would work you into Challenger and what have you. So it provided a very LCS style
Hmm.
stable league system minus the salary lock-in.
Very comprehensive league is
Yeah,
the real point.
yeah, it was fairly comprehensive. And now we're going to look at something that's similar to almost a Dota-esque kind of league, or scenario, sorry, sort of funding scenario where it'll break up into two sections and then a final. So BlizzCon will be the big championship. You know, this is when you play on the big stage. This is when you get your time to shine. And then it breaks into WCS Circuit and WCS Global, which is weird since WCS Global is just like two tournaments, which mainly are the tournaments in Korea. GSL, SSL, and really anything that happens in Korea are
Hmm.
considered WCS Global. The kicker is Korean players. And remind you, this is all alleged because Blizzard itself has not come out and said any of this is true. Korean players will not be able to participate in the WCS circuit without a visa, and not like a visitor visa or like a wandering over to your country visa, but I live here or sports visa or legitimate I'm landed immigrant in your country, which has a lot of people in the community up in arms. They're like, and this is something that I thought would be really interesting to discuss because now the war is a discussion of seeing the best matches possible because that's what people want. They want the some people will do. Some people want the best matches versus a stable scene, a stable
Uh,
region.
well, it's you know okay. Well, I'll just let you finish that thought
No,
before I
actually,
respond.
that was my opening to you. That was like because I
Okay,
know you were gonna give
because
me something good
because
from.
because I've heard this a lot. Like people have said this at least to me personally a lot. Like region lock, whatever. You don't get the best games. The best players don't face off against each other. Truthfully speaking, they still do. What it changes is where they face each other. Whether it's in Korea, in North America because they moved there, or if it's on the world stage, which also still happens every year. Um, they still do end up facing each other, perhaps not as frequently. Instead of getting the best matchup 3 times in a year, you'll get it once.
Is that wrong though? Is that bad though to get that? Like I don't know. Okay, I personally I do like the best games, but I'm a guy who likes to see the best stories and the best kind of things happen. But
Yeah.
like I don't know if that's bad to because that's what people are worried about. They're worried about you're not gonna see the Koreans play against the North American or the foreigners until
Well,
BlizzCon.
yeah, and that's really what they're saying, as opposed to seeing Koreans play in North America. Personally, that's why I think that the whole business of regions just needs to be done away with. Like, just you're a pro player by virtue of how good you are, not by virtue of
So
how good you are in
you
relation to.
basically go to the you're on the whole non-region lock concept. Like
I'm on the
it's
whole like no region thing. Period. Like the thing is,
but we live in regions. Like we can't discount the fact that regions exist.
yes, but the only reason that they exist is because the primary tournaments, uh, in this case WCS, held by Blizzard, introduced this whole like play in your region idea. Like if you
Okay,
take
but
other
regions
games, like
exist. Okay, but in competitions in general, regions exist, and region related locking does exist, and
right,
only they don't have to be emphasized because by virtue you have to travel to these competitions physically, right? So, like,
well that really depends on the game.
true.
How many online only tournaments are
Well,
there for?
I'm talking about even like real life sports, right? Even I'm bringing that
Okay,
example to even a higher level where
right,
competitions are generally region related, right? You
right,
play in the NBA or you play in NFL. Those are North American region locked leagues, right? In theory, and I think about it in that very case because that money is circulated within that region. And the whole point of region locking is that the thing that people are most just annoyed, not annoyed, but I guess the biggest problem with region locking is Korea has a really strong infrastructure. And when I say
yeah,
infrastructure, I mean You have
Yeah,
team
they have the best
houses.
support
They have
system
the
for.
best support system. You have team houses. You get part of Kespa. You have a full
Yep.
salary. You can
Yep.
play all day long and not have to worry about going to school or do work because you're a paid player, and you have, you're if you want to play if you want to play and get better, you have the other Koreans to play. Your
Yeah.
ladder is fully active with other Koreans, the best players. You have active growth. So when you say that and you see that system, it's naturally it breeds really strong players. Really strong players are bred from that system because they have the opportunity to focus on their craft.
Yeah.
While in North America, we still, with even StarCraft, a game that, even once had the world stage, is a little bit less. It's even worse. So you have where players are, the North American ladder is, I would say, a joke because most players go to the Korean ladder to play to gain that experience to play against those players even with less ping. Playing with like crappy ping on a
Yeah.
Korean ladder is better than playing with your best ping on North American ladder. So, and the whole idea is a Korean player with that infrastructure will come over to a North American tournament, win, and then run back off to Korea. So they gain the benefit of their infrastructure without.
Okay, but this was the point that I was kind of trying to make earlier. It's because the whole system is born and raised within Blizzard's region idea. For take another game for example, Dota, right? You have regional ladders and whatnot, but they don't determine where the players compete. So just because you live in Korea and you play on Korean servers, you practice with Koreans who are naturally best, and they have better infrastructure, you still participate in a lot of international tournaments on a regular basis, right? Like most of the events that happen in Dota throughout the year are all international events, which basically elevates the level of the competition throughout. And that's what I mean to say is by may the best man succeed. But with StarCraft, the whole thing is you have to play on the Blizzard ladder. You have to play on the Blizzard servers, which are region based, right? Like if you're from Korea, you
Okay,
can't.
okay, but that's even
And,
another thing. It's like you can switch between each ladder. Like if you're in Korea, you can switch to a North American ladder, and you can switch to it's like it's
right,
only it comes down to your ping.
you can play there, but you're not, but you can't participate in any North American tournaments while you live
No, well,
in
that's
Korea.
that's now. That's what is happening. That's like before it was different. You
No,
could,
even before you just had to you had to take a trip to North America, right? You had to take a
yes.
quick flight
Well,
over, and
how else you to play the LAN? You have to go to the physical event, right? You have to physically go to the event. You can't
well, that's what I'm
like
saying. People
you
who
would
go to the LAN in Dota, for example, qualify online, right?
right. No,
There's
the qualifiers still happen through any region. Like that's still like just like any international tournament, you have region qualifiers. That's still the same with StarCraft. The
anyway,
problem with
like
the Korea
start
developed the way because Korea was the first to develop before Blizzard even paid attention. Like
right.
it's StarCraft scene, like the professional scene happened in Korea before Blizzard was like, "Oh, this is a thing. Maybe we should come in here," right? And Kespa basically supported the scene and gave it the infrastructure long before Blizzard even had the inkling of what esports was, right? They were too busy making Diablos and what have you. So it's a virtue of its history that made Korea such a hub. Not really, not like Blizzard itself didn't specifically have a hand. It was more of their lack of involvement and Korea's, incredibly I don't want to say advanced, but their desire to kind of conquer the market first or try to be the first ones into the market and do it properly, or I guess you could even say they were the ones who started to many
Yep.
degrees. Um, and by virtue, and they started it with StarCraft, so it's always sort of hovered and gravitated to that region, right?
I'll
Start
use
like
another example. Like you have CS:GO, right? And CS:GO has majors, and the teams are from regions, but it's still an international game.
sure,
And that's what I'm trying to say. So in essence, because this is a very roundabout conversation right now.
true,
It in essence, yes, I'm against the region lock. Let people play wherever they want to play from just let the best competition happen, and let champions rise out of that. That
okay,
is my opinion on it, and where I stand on it. It's more complicated in StarCraft, and that the reason that we got into this whole debate about it is because in StarCraft it's more complicated than another game. StarCraft isn't just an international level game because from the very start it had this I won't call it a true region lock, but at least a soft region lock idea where
Mm,
you play on the Korean ladder, right?
yeah,
If
you're
you're from
right.
North America, you can't really play on the Korean ladder because at the end of the day, you just can't afford an extra zero point 0.2 milliseconds on every one of your commands. You know, you can't, so
You're right.
you
No, I
couldn't
agree.
really. Um, and while that's true for Dota, if you're from North America, you don't really play on Chinese servers. The two scenes intermingle a hell of a lot more than in StarCraft. They play against each other very often. At least like 8 times a year.
And would that be in the tournaments? Like, do you say that happens in the tournaments more often than not? Like, how do you what when you
Yeah.
say not trying to open up a new can of worms? I'm just more curious on my end. Like, when you say they mingle a lot, it's because they mingle in the tournament grounds, right? Is now does that
Yes.
happen because the organizers give an X amount of spots to Koreans and X amount of spots to, I mean, sorry, Chinese and X amount of spots to North America, X amount of spots to, or do they just say like, you know,
That does happen a lot where they're just like, we're gonna get two Korean teams, we're gonna get this amount of like American teams, we're gonna get, and then you guys are all gonna duke it out. You're gonna play against each other. That is one major aspect for it. The other major aspect for it is that there is a lot of crossover. Like you'll see a lot of European players on North American teams, a lot of North American players on European teams. You'll see a European player like Black on a Southeast Asian team. There's a lot more or I should say there's a lot less region emphasis in general. But at the end of the day, it's the independently run, not publisher-driven tournaments that bring the teams together on such frequent
So
occasion,
so
and
here's
that's
so to me, I think that this is something that's going to happen more. There are two things I'm thinking going to happen from this WCS changes. Two things. I think a more independent tournaments will happen because I felt that WCS Premier was a huge cloud because it had a lot of it dominated the schedule very heavily, right?
mm,
And tournaments had to really dance around WCS time frames. You were competing for viewership for WCS, and if you
yeah,
weren't one of the major organizers of DreamHack and ESL and whatever, you were at the mercy of running your event, planning your event, and then a WCS event or thing happens and just it just appears on top of you. So I think with Premiere gone, a lot more a lot more windows of times will open up for tournaments to succeed, independent tournaments. I think we'll see a flux of independent tournaments. And then the second thing is I think Koreans will just move. Like it's not like StarCraft is not a team game. One
no,
person can just get up and go to another country by himself.
yeah, we've seen that
Like
most from North American players. I mean, I feel like that's a really good example of players just like they want to get better, they want to climb that ladder, they want to be the best in the game, not just the best in their neighborhood.
and
Um,
they just relocate, right?
yeah.
I don't see that being any more the case. Like I think that Koreans will just relocate. They will find foreigner teams
Yeah,
and they will join them.
that's the key point that I was going to point out. I think that this encourages the foreign teams to step up their game. It's
It's
like,
just it.
you know what I mean? It's no longer the case where it's like the whole thing is going to be dominated by Korea. Now it's like what Blizzard is doing is basically saying like, North America, you're getting your own piece of sunshine. Like you guys are going to play for this amount of money all the time. It's going to be yours. Team organizers, managers, whatever, find a way to make it viable for you guys to produce the best StarCraft players. And I think really the point here is just to elevate the level of StarCraft across the board, as opposed to Korean still dominating the market and nobody else willing to give an effort at competing with it, right? Because like with the way that it seems to me, at least right now, is that the North American teams, the North American or yeah, well, I guess teams. I don't know what you'd call the organization behind the players.
You
In
would still
in the
call them
case of
teams.
StarCraft, the team, whether it's EG or whatever, they're just like, you know what? Even if we try really hard, we're still gonna get outclassed by the Korean players that just migrate to North America and poop on everybody here anyway. Um, but if that's no longer the case and it's a true region lock where everywhere if to play in North America, you have to live in North America. Perhaps it'll incentivize North American teams and organizations to kind of step up their game and
And I think it
create.
will. I feel like it will create this additional esport, like this additional StarCraft kind of rejuvenation from an organization standpoint, not like a player standpoint. But like I think StarCraft is in a really solid place as a game. And then when you couple it with the opportunity, which is what the key thing is opportunity. Let's use that key word, being there. Because if you're saying this is North American money, there's going to be people who are like, okay, well, let's create this North American ecosystem. Because currently, right now, the barrier to entry to doing a large tournament is you have to have a Korean. Like, Koreans must be in it. Like, there's no major
Well,
tournament out there that doesn't have a Korean.
that's exactly what
Uh,
I mean. And then from an organizer, from like a team manager standpoint, you're like, try and build up my player. What's the point? Some like tier 2 or tier 3 Koreans just gonna come out from Korea, poop on him, and then go back. Like, what? Why try, right?
But now with
Um,
this thing is like now we have like there's a stage where you're like, all right, this is the stage to elevate my tier my players on the platform, and that makes I see that makes sponsors happy, right? That helps organizations wrap their head around these players that are not necessarily Koreans, because Koreans are expensive. Let's not put that out of nowhere.
yeah.
Like if you're trying to be if you're a tier 2 team, a Korean is a big pull for that. That's a big jump for you to be like, all right, I'm acquiring a Korean player, but you got to fly them over, you got to sponsor them, you got to like do all these things for them, like you got to bring them. It's a big ask for you,
And
right?
they're used to, they know like what it takes to be the best too. Like you can't overlook that. They're a tier 2 Korean player has probably mingled, like, lived with, played against all the tier 1 players, and he knows how they get treated and what it took for them to rise to the top. The kind of organizational support in terms of a house and like
He's gonna be
somebody to do your
expecting that.
laundry,
Yeah,
prepare your food, like all that kind of stuff. So when you're like, yep, we want to help build you up, he's like, all right, well, here's what it's going to take to help build me up. And they're like, whoa, 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 we
I should.
we
I
we can't do
should.
that kind of stuff. Foot massages, like, that doesn't, you know
I should have. I feel like I should have rethought my ambitions and become a tier 1 player. That's it. I should have been like tier 1 player life. That's it. The real life.
Mm,
Getting those foot massages and
the esports honeys.
the esports honeys and those hand manicures. Oh,
Well, I don't know. You played Warcraft 3 and Street Fighter, so I don't think you stood a chance at
yeah, I
esports
know. You
honeys.
know what?
But
Those are all stepping stone games. Look at how many games the tier 1 players of like the main games came from those games from the beginning. Like Warcraft 3 bred so many players of like real esports right now,
actually,
right?
the only real esports players that Warcraft 3 bred were the Dota players.
Well, that's
So,
yes, that's what I mean. Like, yeah, no, well, it's also like grubby for
see, I don't
StarCraft
know.
was.
For some reason, when I look back at Warcraft 3 and Dota 1, they're like totally separate games in my mind. Like, people who played Warcraft 3 like you didn't really play Dota back then, and people
True.
who
No,
played
that's
Dota
true.
back then like me didn't really play Warcraft 3.
No, it's true. It's very much you could. I agree with you in many regards.
There's
Where
some crossover, Akaboshi, for
like because
example.
like I said, like I was a ladder warrior, so
Hmm.
I was all about not playing. I saw Dota as um
It's a waste of time.
diversion. It was a diversion from the ladder, right?
Hmm.
And it's like
It's like Overthrow,
yes, or
something to
Hearthstone,
do when you're bored of ladder.
or Hearthstone. Right?
Yeah.
It was a diversion. Just couldn't like you should why play a game of Dota when you can
You
ladder,
could be
right?
laddering.
You
Yeah,
could be laddering.
absolutely. That's it.
So I saw it as a diversion. Any people in my clan who played Dota, I was like, listen, like
We
you're
don't.
obviously you're not taking this seriously,
Yeah, we
right?
ain't got time for that. Like, you
So
better get on board. We're gonna find somebody else.
that it happened. It happened many a times.
I don't
Um,
doubt that. That happens. Honestly, that happens a lot. Like, regardless of whether it's a side game to the platform you're playing, or otherwise, like whether it's you're spending too much time playing custom maps on Dota. A lot of times people will be like, bro, we got practice. You can't be playing CS right now. Like, you know. But nonetheless, the point is, I was saying that those communities, those two games, seemed a lot more separate to me than just like another map for the client. You know what I mean?
oh,
At,
it was a
at
whole new world, practically Princess Jasmine.
at
Uh,
at the same time, really the take home point from this is that you chose wrong when you were playing Warcraft 3 and Street Fighter,
yeah, no,
and
you can take that
that's all I
away.
wanted to send home to the
I
viewers.
I concede. Any key exclusive right now. You hear it here
Draken chose
first.
wrong.
I chose wrong. I should have chose a real esport. StarCraft was too hard. It was too hard at the time. I
You
couldn't
know
like.
what?
And
I
for
I
some,
appreciate that though. Like,
there was something about Warcraft 3 that clicked with me. The heroes, the whole element. Because I got it when it first came out, right? Warcraft 3, and like it clicked, and I was like, I get this. I get this heroes thing, and It
It
really
could have
works for
been.
me.
You know what? I feel like it missed its timing. Maybe a couple of years later, and it would have been a huge esport. Like, I don't see any reason not for it not to be the case.
You know what? I think
Um,
I think
well, hold on. Well, let's just pay our respects before we go any further, because Warcraft 3 is still pretty far up there as far as esports go. People have made a lot of money, good careers, organizations, teams, competitions in Warcraft 3. A lot of that kind of stuff's happened. So, not
doesn't
trying to
WCA
knock
still do Warcraft 3?
yeah, not trying to knock that game too much. I don't really look at WCA as any kind of source of legitimacy or validation. Like, they just recently said that like there's no Dota 2 on the main stage at WCA, and some people were like, "No Dota on the main stage. What are you gonna show?" And they were like, "Hearthstone." I was like, "Oh, all right. Well, have fun." Like,
Rip.
yeah, pretty much. Hearthstone main stage, no Dota. Well, anyway,
I agree with you. I honestly I think Warcraft 3 was before its time.
yeah.
Um,
Well, as
Oh,
most innovators are.
it obviously sprung children of our future, current, present, right now, right?
Oh
But
yeah, it
I
defined genres and developed its own, like, for sure.
absolutely, but I think Warcraft 3, the element, like, because if you think about Warcraft 3 as a game, it was an attempt to redefine RTSs as a whole, which RTSs really need right now. RTSs need to be completely revamped for the audience. I feel like the audience are disconnected from the RTS genre. Um, you know, and I feel like Warcraft 3 made that attempt, and I think it did it successfully. I just think people
Yeah,
weren't, they
I don't
just
think it
weren't.
was an attempt. I think they did a fine job.
You're
It
right.
was
The idea of heroes changing the balance, they were this thing that changed the tides of a battle. They caused the game to be so much more harass focused, which to me is what really, like, it was a general. You created a general, and that general could change the tide of war, which really was important to me, and I think in a strategy point of view, I loved it. I think Warcraft 2 was
Mhm.
a fantastic game.
But
But
it is a great concept. I mean, it just adds it's not like it just adds such a good layer of strategy to the game that didn't exist in that genre before. Just creating like just one unit that's so strategy defining, right? And like that little chess game of like, oh, you built the Crypt Lord, well, I'm gonna build the Paladin, right? Like I'm gonna build the or I'm gonna build a Lich with my Dreadlord and just go harass you down, just poke and prod, and you're gonna suck it. Like
yeah, that
that's
was it. Best game, man. Want to hear this on the Any first. One day I'm gonna do an old school tournament,
oh
going
man,
back
two
to
Aniki exclusives,
uh,
one episode. We're
one
rolling.
episode. Hope one day people will roll back these VODs and they're like, the exclusives, they're here.
That's it. Ten
Found
years
them, the
from now,
treasures. Yep,
we're
just
playing
pull.
Warcraft 4 tournament.
Yeah, you find the treasures. You're like, secret chest.
Yeah.
Um, so let's move on to the next point. Uh, Azubu. Ooh.
Oh, that fundraiser.
So Azubu, our favorite Twitch competitor, has announced that they are raising $49 million in financing.
I thought that they announced that they raised, not are raising. Is that
Sorry, they
I misled?
raised. Sorry, it is raised.
Yeah, they okay. I just wanted to make sure the difference between they intend to or they have done, because as far as I understand it, they have
They
raised
have.
49
They've
million.
raised. Sorry, 59 million. 59
Oh,
million
okay.
in debt financing. I
Mhm.
want you to really hear that word. It's debt
Yeah,
financing.
yeah.
And the
Yep.
difference between debt financing to our audience is, unlike, sort of VC capital and those other kind of funds where they trade a portion of your company for money. This is a loan. This is where you say to that company, you say to those people that we will give you $59 million back at some point.
Yep.
It doesn't, like, we don't obviously know those terms, but you imagine that whoever gave them 59 million is gonna be like, listen,
On the flip side, it does mean that the current structure and ownership of Azubu remains entirely intact.
oh, what do you mean?
It
Oh, you
means that
mean like in
nobody
terms
else
of nobody
nobody else
else?
owns their ass.
Well,
They owe money. Whoever
other
they
than
owe
like the
money to
Kaloof and like
owns their ass, but nobody's gonna tell them how to spend the money that they borrowed.
true.
That's
That
that's what
is
I mean
true.
to say.
Other
Like
than their parent company
people
and stuff like
people
that.
gave them this money on the notion that they are building something that's worthwhile, and that they trust that it will be a successful financial venture, and that they will get this money back at some point in time. But it doesn't mean that between then and now that Azubu is going to go around banning music or videos that are flagged on YouTube or anything like that because they're, you know, the company that bought them up owns the rights to all these things and copyright laws and my Twitch references if is eluding you, then now you know.
I find it so interesting to think that Azubu, like, I can't tell if this is Azubu saying that we are, we're doing well, so we're getting more money, so we can expand, or if this is like Azubu saying we're drowning, we
No,
need
no,
money so we can.
this is Azubu saying, guys, we're doing it. We're going for the gold, right?
Is that how you interpret
We
it?
either take over or we go out trying. That's how I interpret it.
This is Azubu's like war cry
This
charge where it's like.
this is Azubu and Twitch and Hitbox and all of them sitting at a poker table, and Azubu's sweating buckets. He's got two cards in his hand, and it's like, you know what? We're all in. That's what this is. We're going
This is it.
we're going
This
for
is
the
the
whole
battle
pot.
cry.
And
Okay,
Twitch
so
is
think
just
about it
sitting
though.
there looking at its cards, giant stack of chips right in front. They're
Oh,
like, "Oh, okay, go for it."
it's so funny because you think of when you put it in that terms, you think of Twitch. Twitch is barely unmoved. YouTube Gaming came in with a big
Yeah,
buy-in. They're like, we're already here.
yeah,
YouTube Gaming doesn't really like they care, but they don't care because they already like they win in YouTube already. So you have really Azubu and Hitbox fighting it out, and I can't tell which one's doing better. I want to say Hitbox only because of OG, but that's totally an internal perception. I don't that has no business bearings or actual data behind it. Um, I feel Azubu has some formidable quality, but I don't know. You watched something on Azubu recently.
you know what? If there's good matches on there, I'll watch. I really don't like it. Compared to the other platforms, I don't feel like it has the same or as many merits. But at the same time, you know, content is content. If there's a game that I want to watch that's on and it's on Azubu, I'm gonna watch it. Yeah. Uh,
I feel like that's the thing for them. Like I feel like they're in this space where they are okay with doing that kind of stuff as long as they like they get the content right. I feel like people may be okay with watching something on a Zubu or Hitbox, assuming it's something worth watching,
yeah.
right?
Yeah. Exactly. But at the same time, going back to that poker table, it really does come down to, you know, how many chips each one of them is holding, and is Azubu going to be able to raise that much money off of meaningful content in a reasonable amount of time to pay back that huge amount of debt that they just took on, right?
I feel like
Uh,
this is like a 10 year, 10 year investment that Sapinda, whatever, will be able to see, or Kaloof. I don't really remember who owns Azubu anymore. We'll see that money back eventually. Um, I don't know. Like I don't like. And this is gonna come back to our sponsor question. Like I don't know how much really money can you make from these advertisers that Twitch don't already own. Like I feel like if anybody's gonna get this advertisement dollars and
and
you
on
know
top of that, it's also a matter of, like I said, when I say Twitch holds all the chips, chips is viewers in this case. It's registered users, it's accounts, it's me, it's you, it's every one of the people that watches any of these platforms on a regular basis. Twitch has all of us on its platform on a regular basis. Even when you don't know what you want to watch, if there's no meaningful content on that you want to watch and you're just like, oh, I should watch something, you turn on Twitch, browse the game section, see what's happening.
it's
You
true.
don't, you know,
It's
you don't
true.
go to Azubu and be like, I wonder what's happening on Azubu right now. It doesn't happen. Like, doesn't. I'm so
Could
like,
you imagine just
nope.
like pull
No
up the
offense to Azubu. Um, I would much rather offend them on other things. Uh,
pull up that
and
azubu.com today?
yeah, it just it doesn't happen. Doesn't happen for me. Doesn't happen for you. Doesn't happen for anybody I know, um, or anybody in this space. And that's gonna make it difficult for them to pay back anything really. Uh, yeah, I like even tournaments that they sponsor, they have to pay out to I like I'm not saying that they're drowning or anything like that, but I imagine they're not, you know,
Okay,
swimming in
here's a
it
question
right
for you,
now.
and this is completely off the along the lines, but let's say you want to organize a tournament, and you're like, I want to do a tournament, and Azubu offered you money to do it, would you do it?
Um, I'm not gonna close the door on it right away. I think the first thing I would do with it is ask Twitch if they would match it. Um,
Oh, but I don't know.
uh,
I feel like
just
Twitch
because
would be
it
like,
gives Twitch an opportunity to muscle out a bit more of the competition, and to them, like it shouldn't matter. Like Twitch is, as far as I'm concerned, swimming in money.
"Mm,
Like, so I don't see why they like wouldn't want to take an opportunity to, get a little like another step up on them. Why
well,
not,
because
right?
they
It's
might be like, we don't have to give you money at all because someone will just organize a event that already,
true, but
you know,
yeah, it could be the case, very much.
I'm just like I'm curious to see like because obviously that is I think I feel like that's the main thing for people when they make the choice to go to a Zubu, or at least I feel where they're um you go to a Zubu or a Zubu approaches you and says, hey, look, I'll give you X amount of dollars to put
Yep,
your
yep. To put
tournament,
your
your league, whatever it is, build it on my platform, and I'll just pay you money. Like I'll
yeah,
send you money,
yeah.
right?
That it's. I agree. I think that that's the most common form of interaction on Azubu. I don't think that anybody has chosen that platform on its merits or by virtue of its coding or anything like that. At the same time, um, it doesn't like I don't know. I would explore other options before I accepted it. Not saying that I wouldn't do it. It's definitely not beyond me. It's just I'd kind of want to try and exhaust other options first.
Okay, next question then. Last question. If which do you favor, Hitbox or Zubu?
Hitbox, hands down. I've
Oh,
watched a fair bit of stuff on Hitbox, and they have a good they have a good thing going for them. They definitely need like more meaningful content and more daily interactions, but at the same time, I find that their code and their features is somewhat better than Azubu.
hmm, interesting.
Yeah.
Now, between Azubu, Hitbox, and Twitch, not viewership wise, whatever, in terms of just hard like coding, like I haven't watched anything on Hitbox or Azubu.
Mm.
Uh, from like a viewer experience wise, do you still feel Twitch is the best, or would you say that? Do you feel like just because of the sheer volume of Twitch?
You know what? If you asked me a month ago, I would have said Twitch is not the best, but they've made some improvements
Mm-hmm.
recently with their HTML Flash swapperoo. Um, that's kind of helped a lot. I do have my gripes with Twitch. I really do. Their mobile app stinks. There's a lot of things wrong with it, um, but it's still definitely my first choice. I think that by virtue of
I think
uh,
that's because we take that choice because of its size. But I wonder if there's
no, no, no. By it's still my first choice, and I think that the reason for it is just because they've had the money to pay the programmers to do the work. They have they have all the money. Like they hold all the chips. It's not hard to be the best when you have everybody in your corner. It takes somebody really revolutionary to come around and think about the whole concept from a completely different angle to
Mhm.
muscle out somebody who owns such a huge majority of the industry already. Um,
Well, it takes you have to come from a different angle. Like you just can't come from
yeah,
the same path that they came. I don't
yeah.
think that works very well. But
No, it doesn't. It really doesn't. That's very true.
like I feel like you can't, you know, someone makes a electric car, just you making another electric car the
Yeah,
same
that
way
doesn't do
is
anything.
no, right? And I feel like that's not how things work in the world. Like from
That's
any
not
sort
how
of
progress works.
no, from anything I've ever seen, right? I've never seen someone's like, "Oh, you made a phone. I too will make that exact phone,
Yeah,
and I
well,
will just change a
it's
little bit
true
of
that
features."
in technology at least, most improvements happen in major leaps. Not like small. Like take a look at phones for example. We had pretty much the same phone year to year until the iPhone came out, and then everybody was like, "Oh my God, what a concept! Like we need to do this, right?" Like, and then now you have like Nexus and like Samsung and all these companies make phones that are basically iPhones just with their own little twists on them.
Right. And
Um,
I completely agree in that regard, where it's not just
so
in little leaps and bounds.
it's but it's these major quantum leaps. I mean, and you could look back. I mean, I'm sure that if you wanted to date prehistoric things like the invention of fire or the steam engine or aircraft, any one of these things that like one invention a basic concept from a different angle, totally changed the way that we look at things. Um, but that is the way that these things go by and large part, and I think that that's going to be the same thing with whether it's Azubu or Hitbox or any one of these competitors to Twitch. It's not really going to change until one of them completely redefines what it is that the platform is achieving.
Agreed. Completely agree. So we'll close this part up by doing the last, just reading a little quote from Azubu. Azubu is focused on getting content right, sorry, and riding the wave of growth and could help them cash in when media rights are traded similar to traditional media, if that day ever comes. And that's an interesting statement. I actually want to comment and say that I think that is clever in many regards. I think that's clever to
Yeah,
own broadcasting right and hold on to them, hoping that if the industry grows to a point where it's all about what content you have exclusivity to, I think is kind of clever in many regards. I don't know how that translates. Like, I don't think that's going to be dollars in your pockets today. And
um,
you're kind of betting on an old style type of structure to carry on over to a new style, which I don't know.
yeah.
I don't.
This seems very much television-esque to me.
No, it is very
Which
television esque.
it's
That's
like we're talking about, like, on channel 7. It's like, I'm not saying it's impossible or anything like that. It could definitely be a smart move. It's just not a guaranteed to be a
no,
smart move.
no, absolutely not.
Like
Um,
some things that'll happen, like with like when with Twitch, everybody was like, "Yep, this is overnight success. We know it's happening, like it's coming," right? Whereas exclusivity to exclusive rights to content media, um, I don't know. I feel like the internet's too much of a free space for that to be an instant agreement, kind of like, yes, we're on board.
Yeah, I think one of the things I think is really good is if think of an incubator kind of thing where you have a Zubu is like for example snatch up this UOL Boa Compara XLG League, which I guess was nothing until they helped fund it, and now it's one of the main things for the Brazilian challenger circuit for League of Legends, right? It's having that kind of thing where you're a nest or an incubator
Mhm,
for
mhm.
content for like not you don't obviously select and raise every child under the sun, but you're like, oh, this has potential to be a good content
Yeah,
staple. I'm going to throw money at this as
yep,
an investment, right?
yep,
And people do that all the time. Think about Game of Thrones, which is funded by HBO, right? HBO is just like, I'm going to put money towards this because this is going to net me money because this is exclusively on HBO. Sure,
yeah,
the internet gets its hands on it, like, but that doesn't matter to HBO. HBO still makes that money somewhere else.
yeah.
So I feel like this is valuable in that regard, where Twitch is kind of like we're open, and you kind of have to fight for yourself and survive on our platform, live or die, Wild West. It's fine with us; it doesn't matter because everyone's here. While Azubu is like, you know what, you're making possibly the next big league. You have a good team. Here's some money. We're kind of your sponsor, and you kind of see that with Hitbox and OG, where they're like, we're gonna have a team, or we're gonna
It
give the team, some money to do
yeah.
what they do,
It,
right?
it definitely it definitely is the case where all of these different platforms are taking different approaches to try and corner, or segment a corner of the market for themselves, whether it's Hitbox trying to take ownership of a couple teams, or what have you. At the same time, I'm not sure that any of them are going to be able to do what Twitch has already succeeded in, and that's where I say, like, it's not a bad idea. It would have been great if you were first and did it. At this point, I'm not sure that it's enough.
And
Like, I'm just
we'll
not.
leave it at that because I think that's until we jump a few, years into the future, we're not going to get a good element of because this debt financing is just happening right now.
Well, that
Um,
I mean, debt financing doesn't generate like
Instant
six
results.
million subscribers. Like it. You're
Never.
gonna, like I said, it's not a matter of jumping into the future and waiting to see. I feel like unless they come up with something really sensational, like they totally revolutionize the way that we consume content online, I don't see Azubu taking any more of the market now. They'll have a lot more content. That's about all of it. Which increases viewership, doesn't increase your market share.
All
And
right, so let's jump into our discussion. You and I have had this discussion many a times. I thought I would bring it back up. I was hoping that we had a third, but either or, it was you and me, and we'll do any key things. Uh, Doing esports without sponsors. So you and I have had the statement or discussion by phrasing it around making an event happen, and like making an event happen, and the necessity evils of a sponsor. And I wanted to have that more in a
just gonna
public
put it out there. I
space.
don't think sponsors are evil. Draken thinks sponsors are evil. I don't think sponsors are evil.
All right, so let's start there. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think, and obviously all future sponsors are excluded.
He already loves you. You're already his favorite sponsor. All future sponsors note
Oh,
this.
I don't think any of our future sponsors are evil, but I feel that esports is very heavily reliant on sponsors. If you think about it in comparison to any other form of medium, like in terms of events or sport medium or whatever you want to
I'm
call
gonna
it.
disagree with you.
You don't think so? You don't think we're real heavily reliant on sponsors? That
I think
sponsors?
we I think we are just like every other major sport.
Oh, I see. Okay, no, I just see, there we go. Okay, let's go disagree with that. I think esports is heavily reliant on sponsors. Sponsorship makes up, like I'm gonna say,
80%
most
at
events,
least.
80%, 70 to 80% of a lot of the money generated in an esport
Yes.
product.
I would
While
say the
in
same about football, basketball, NASCAR.
So I actually was going to say, so the only one of those sports that you noted that has anywhere close to that level of statistics is NASCAR.
That's not true.
NASCAR is the only one. Both no, hold on, don't
Okay.
they all have sponsorship? Sponsorship, all those sports you noted
Okay, are
all
you
have sponsorship.
including commercials as sponsorship?
Those are the commercials are considered broadcasting rights, and that's not
Those
considered
are
sponsorship.
sponsorship.
Those are not
Sponsors,
sponsorship. That's
sponsorship.
not
Sorry,
sponsorship.
oh, sponsorship.
Those
That's sponsorship.
so that's not
All
sponsorship.
put it all in the
That's
same category. No,
that's
no
it's
sponsors without advertising. You might as well consider all
Okay,
advertising
but
sponsorship as well.
okay, so you have to frame it in the same light. So, broadcasting rights or is a contract between the streamer, or not, sorry, the television provider, much like a Twitch or a Azubu in our case, where
Right,
they buy the rights to leverage against that particular thing with their own kind of buy-ins, and that's their sponsor. They can sell sponsorship against the ads. The
right.
individual sponsors of the leagues or the programming only do the buy-ins at the event or on the actual thing, and sometimes they do a broker deal between the two, where it's a crossover, especially
Yep.
if they buy both. But when you sponsor the NFL or NHL, you're not necessarily, but you're getting that exposure rather than saying I'm going to put an ad there. You have to go and buy an ad, like you have to turn around, but it doesn't get you an automatic ad. You have to go and purchase it from the
Right.
the the, the
Still,
broadcaster, right?
I name a sponsor that hasn't requested some kind of visibility. Visibility basically synonymous for advertising here,
Yes, yes. Okay,
right?
but what I'm suggesting is that in regular sports, their main venue, main avenue is their large venues. Their large venues and the
Yeah,
things that
but
they sell the most, except for
yeah,
NASCAR.
but it's
NASCAR is
not the hot
completely different.
dogs and the ticket
No, no,
seats.
no.
It's
Okay,
and the what's it called? The spectator seats. It's not
no.
about right. It is
It's
about leveraging advertising space.
So it's a combination of the pie is all split out into different directions, but the majority of it, the two major kickers, is actually season tickets. So yes, but not regular tickets. So like actual like high the box seats. So the corporate box seats in the stadium generate majority of the major revenue, and then it falls down to
I'd wager to say advertising comprises a
I,
much
I agree. I
larger.
agree. That's yes. The broadcasting rights. So it's broadcasting rights and broadcasting rights and corporate seats make up the majority for most major leagues.
Mhm.
Is that, and then sponsorship follows by a third. Depends on it. Like NFL probably has the least, and compared to maybe something like NHL or the NBA. because the broadcasting rights surpass everything. Like the broadcasting rights for the NFL is
They're huge. They're
just
huge.
huge. It's just like it's
Huge.
just ridiculous
Huge.
because the broadcaster makes tons of money on the advertising against the
Right.
NFL.
Which
So
is just adding a layer of cake. Like instead of having a two-layered cake, you now have a three-layered cake of
yes,
sponsorship.
okay, yes. If we want to look at it like that, yes. If you want to say that the element of a layered cake that the is just one far removed from the organization and the organizer
Right.
is the
But ultimately
sponsor.
the money still comes from the advertising.
Okay, I can make a note like that, but I think what I really wanted to bring it home was that are
Yeah.
we particularly in our organized like not our organized our industry
Yeah.
incredibly reliant because we don't have three or four other legs that make
Are we incredibly reliant? Oh yeah, we really are. Like there's yes, but what I was trying to say is we are, but if you look at it, that's kind of how everybody's done it so far, in terms of traditional media and sports. Like not just, and not even just sporting events. It could be like a giant festival, like Live 8 brought to you by Coca-Cola, or the Olympics brought to you by Coca-Cola. Like you know
and
what
those
I
are
mean?
some really significant sponsorship buys like that like
Yes.
without a doubt,
Yeah.
right?
And that's like it's not just us, but yes, we are. And that's really what I was trying to
No,
say.
and I think
And
the thing
then
is like I think esports in general, aside from the publisher, I want to make this distinguish. So publish not like main publisher esports. I mean esports that is sustained by the publisher, like leagues. I want to really zero that in. Organizations such as teams and actual tournaments are heavily subsidized by by sponsors. So if a sponsor I think if we decided at some point, or someone decided at some point that they weren't going to sponsor that team, that team may become unstable, assuming they haven't yet
right,
diversified themselves in some other way,
right, that
right?
they haven't generated other sources to
Other
compensate or
sources of
what have you.
revenue, or yes. So it makes that thing that really interesting where where both the organizations and the teams, I mean, both the organizations that do tournaments and organizations that do um, the content,
All yeah,
all of
all the
us
establishments in
esports
esports.
are driven by sponsors, which I think is a little not weird, but I think that's a little scary. I think that's scary to have all our establishments
I
really
can see it.
generated by sponsors. Like I understand maybe one, content to me really screams as something that sponsorship heavy makes a lot of sense. But
Yep.
from like an events side or even a team side, I feel that organizations as a whole are not either maximizing or they're not, the de facto reach is
Okay.
to run to
So
sponsors.
yeah, so basically what you're saying is we too easily or too quickly just fall back on this source, which I can see why you'd say that. I can't even say that I disagree. It would be great um, to have other uh, sources, but they're none of them are just as readily accessible. Like it's not a matter of
It's
preference.
easy. It's
You
easier.
know,
You're right. It's like no one wants to be the one that says like, because when you get a sponsorship, suddenly you go from $0 to like 10K,
yeah,
like that. You're like, oh, I could sell little trinkets for $2 each, or I
yeah,
can sell this sponsorship and get 10K overnight. So I get it. I get it. It's sexy. Sponsorship is sexy. Like it's so sexy to get
yes,
a $10,000 check or a $20,000 check or whatever have you. But I think it's so unhealthy for our for our industry. I personally believe that it's unhealthy for our industry to have that as a de facto. I feel that, and now don't get me wrong. I think that sponsors get a lot of value from sponsoring esports. I think there's a great
yes.
relationship and it's synergetic for most part, like from what I've ever seen. But there's this huge synergetic relationship between sponsors and their sort of organization kin,
Yep.
right? And some people really make it work for it, but I don't know. It's something that I personally have believed that makes our industry as a whole lazier. You know, it makes
I
us that.
mean, yeah, but our industry wouldn't really exist without it. So,
You're right. You're very so
like,
so right.
it's kind of like at the end of the day, there's kind of like they have a trump card, right? Like they're easy and they're great and they treat us well and all these things, but at the end of the day, we we can't, or at least right now, we kind of need them, right? But that's where I kind of see the bottom line of this is like everything else is like, are we dependent on them? There's a lot of speculation. The one thing that's not really um, speculation is the that we wouldn't have gotten to this point in esports without people sponsoring things, without
Agree.
companies with money from other businesses, whether it be soft drinks, computer part manufacturers, uh, household appliances. Like there's without that, we wouldn't really have gotten to where we are as an industry. And so it's kind of like that's the one like piece of solid ground that we can stand on in this, right? Like everything else is still not 100%.
What I think I'd like to see, or I hope that we see more of, is what Fnatic's doing. You know, they're
Right.
they're making their own hardware,
Right.
sponsoring
Something
themselves.
that a lot of organizations in the sporting goods have done before. Like you get a lot like Air Jordans or like team jerseys, all these things, right? Um, and more than that, like what would you say, like hockey equipment, stuff like that. Like there's I know what you mean. I just don't know how feasible it is aside from deals
I don't
with
know either. I have to be honest.
companies. Like you'd have to make a deal with a company that already makes these things. I just feel like it's for an organization like EG to open up a factory, do all the R&D, like hire the labor to create these products. Like it seems like a lot.
It is
Uh,
extensive. Like I'm gonna go on a limit and say I agree that there is probably this level of where, but I feel like when you bring it kind of in house, where you have this, like I'm like it's a different relationship when you're like, okay, this company, I'm gonna be making mice, you do all the
right.
R&D, and we're slapping our name on it. We'll make sure there's a quality level to it, and we'll put a brand. I think that's a
Yeah,
stronger
and like we'll get our
relationship.
professional players' inputs and
Yeah, I think that's a stronger play than being like, you know, Steel Series Razor.
yeah,
Um, let's partner up with your marketing budget and you put money towards me. Um, it's the same relationship. It's just further removed. You have less, like, they obviously have the control and the budgets, and they decide whether or not to keep you around at the end of the day.
right.
Um, and I think the relationship between selling products and sports entertainment, esports entertainment is synergetic. I think there's this level of synergy that will always exist. I don't discount that. I think, or I believe that organizations should be focusing on bringing it in house at some point, or diversifying the revenue in other ways, right? That's my standpoint on this kind of thing.
Yeah, I would love that to be the case. I just don't see it being quite there yet. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like I feel like
Here's
esports
the
is
thing,
gonna
though.
get there.
I
Yep.
think crowdfunding has been a thing that we have seen a lot of, and I think I'd love to see that to be more of a trend, like in everything. Right? So,
Uh,
crowdfunding is not necessarily sponsorship in many regards. It's
Crowdfunding is basically the same thing as selling season passes, though.
well, that's what I mean, right? That's tickets, isn't it? That's tickets. That's an actual. You're saying to your audience, this you are funding this. This is you're funding this, not a
Yeah.
sponsor, not the publisher. You. This is a one-to-one relationship. You know, you put in the money and you get this product out. This is a one-to-one relationship. You're not the product, because in a sponsorship relationship, your audience is the product
Yeah.
to the sponsor, right? And
Yeah.
that's what you're selling. You're
I mean
selling
that
your audience.
it's obviously really good. I feel like audience members really love that. Sorry, really love that because it keeps the tournament. I'll use the word pure, even though it doesn't quite describe what
I
I
like
want
I
it
like
to.
the word pure. I think that's I'm gonna take that with me. I
Just
like the word
just
pure.
because when you sign a deal with sponsors, there's a certain amount of compliance that you're going to be forced into, like it or not. Like whether it's you have to put on an ad or you have to put their logos in places, stuff like that. Like people always love the international or the majors because there's no ads and there's no sponsors anywhere. There's no like, this replay brought to you by a Zeus or like. But before we get into the game, a quick word from our sponsors. Like, it's That's the like necessary evil part of the sponsorship game. Um,
I love that you mentioned the word pure, and I think the purity of an event is so good. Like, I
yeah,
get the sponsor thing. I get that we have to run those ads, but as an audience, I say for myself as watching stuff. I love watching content. I hate ads. I really do. I hate interruptions.
yeah,
I hate watching something and then someone has to like interrupt me with this advertisement. So I'm like, I don't care. Like when I'm ready to go look for something to buy, I'll go look for it. I don't want you
right.
know I don't want it to be thrown in my face. But it's one of those things where um I feel like the purity of it is just really good, right? Like there's a level of when you're watching the really great games and really great matches, you're gonna get that. So actually, Skillamaru in our chat brings up some interesting points that CLG and TSM have all found ways to bring products. Now, since I don't follow either of those teams, I'm gonna have to take his word on it. Like TSM has gaming chairs, clothing, posters, eh? Small knickknacks, which make something worth buying, especially, and promo codes off of CLG merchandise, I presume. And
Yeah, merchandising is very common. I'm gonna go out on a limb here and put it out there. TSM and CLG don't make nearly as much off their merchandise as they do off their sponsorships.
I will concur. I'll concur with that. Um,
It's
so
nice
actually,
that
I will say
they've done
some
that for the
merchandise though.
fans more than anything. They've done that so that you can be like a diehard CLG or TSM fan
Funniest things though is
and
like I
own
feel
a
like
part of the team. It's not really. I can't imagine that to them. It's like, wow, look at all this money we're making off selling
okay, hold on,
hoodies, right? Like,
hold on. Let's take a step back though. Right now, the way merchandising is done is you know TSM and CLG put on a shirt and you buy it off their site, correct? Like that's
yep,
what you do.
or an
If you think
affiliate
or an
website or something
affiliate or
like
whatever, like you maybe like a jinx.com. But if you think about
that. Yeah,
maybe an NFL or NBA, right now, like one of the things you can go get an NBA shirt from Walmart or from what's
right.
those sports shows
Which
like
which is
Sports
much
Check or
more
like
right. Sports clothing stores, which is much more likely in that case, the sport clothing stores that the team or the organization has sold the right to their clothing line to like a some kind of
you think
clothing
so? Like
outlet.
they would just they give to an outlet and the clothing outlet will make
They're
yeah, I guess that
like, you
makes
know what?
sense.
You pay us $100,000 a year license, you get to make the clothing and sell it.
So that's the word, licensing. I think
It's
licensing. There we go. I think licensing is that's a great thing. Is licensing is one of those key things that might be, and I don't know, like I don't think it's accessible to the average team, but I think a
not yet,
TS
not
yeah,
yet.
not yet, but I think to a TSM or a Cloud9, I don't see why licensing is so far out. And maybe it's just the infrastructure is not there. Like I can't tell you the last time I saw a retail store dedicated to esports apparel. You know?
I was actually commenting on this the other week. I was saying that when is EB Games or what have you going to start selling
I know.
esports paraphernalia? Like
Did you? I was thinking the same thing. Is like,
like
why can't I walk into an EB Games
why do I gotta wait
and
for the international to pick up some Dota plushies? Like,
like, why do I have to go to an EB Games and wait until then before I can get myself a TSM shirt, right?
especially
Why?
around the holidays, like your kid's a diehard Fnatic fan. Walk into an EB Games, buy him a Fnatic jersey.
That's what I was thinking. You know what though? You know who really should be selling these? The land centers. Like
What
straight
land
up, like
centers?
well, well, for example, in
Where are
our
these
area,
land centers? Show me them. I'd like to
Hunter
visit one.
Hunter and Lucas. I think
You know
one of the
what?
key, like
Yeah.
like that's a place that should be selling
Okay.
TSM
Well,
jerseys and
to
all
explain
year
it,
round.
land centers are still based around LANing and not about esports culture. Whereas jerseys and that kind of stuff, it's more of an
But
esports
isn't
culture
that
thing.
really bad though? Don't you think? Like in my
I
opinion, I think that's really terrible because I think the concept of us going out to a land center to just play to dick around is diminished to me. I feel that we have our laptops, we have our computers,
Well, see, the
and
thing is, if you were to esportify a LAN center, then you'd have like team practices there. Like, all right, Ryerson, like Team Ryerson for Dota, you have your weekly practice or your bi-weekly practice at this LAN center, and then this LAN center is like a sponsor, kind of like you would, any other sports team. That's where if you go to Shula's Joe's and they sponsor the Argos, then that what does that mean? Is that after a game, this where you come, or this where you guys hold your meetings, stuff like that. Like
well, that's
it's
really good.
you
I didn't
you
think about
build
that.
you build those relationships, but that's not what a LAN center is founded on. A LAN center is founded on the idea of people just getting together to kick back and chill and play some games,
I
not
want you to, I want.
not esportified
Okay,
culture.
we're gonna do it at some point. We're gonna
Oh
once
yeah,
ESChamp is huge, we're gonna have our own little. We have a LAN center dedicated and esportify the crap out of it
sounds
because
majestic.
very majestic. Team house, studio house on the top, LAN center on the bottom. You know, third floor reserved for pool parties and all the honeys.
All the honeys,
I don't know, like the whole concept seems so easy to me. Where or
easy,
well, easy, like it's not a difficult concept to grasp your head around. I
easy.
think it's not a hard concept to guess, right? To
Yeah.
say that you should, you know, as a land center, you should be carrying retail, right?
But
Instead of
again,
buying like,
it's you got to stop using the word Lancer if that's the case, because
oh right,
people aren't like buying $3 an hour PC slots in in
but that's
that
okay, right?
space.
Okay,
You
well,
might offer it, but that's not the majority of your business. In
no,
which
no.
case, you're not
I,
a LAN.
I would call it like I don't know what I would call it, but I would, you know, I would do the whole membership, maybe a membership thing. You know, you're like a club member, esports club.
Yeah,
I don't know how
yeah.
you would brand
Club
it,
is a good way of going about it. Yeah.
esports club. You know,
Watch the games, like
you know,
all that.
you pay a monthly fee and you get in, and it's all about esports and it's the unlimited play, whatever, as long as you're a member, and it's not about, you know, per hour dollar charge. It's about getting people in so that you can sell retail crap to them
Yep.
every hour and whatever, right? You know, you want
A
esports content.
specialty. Yeah.
Yeah, you want esports content in there. Like, you know, think of the Starbucks model, right? The Starbucks model isn't about you coming in and grabbing a coffee and leaving. It's about you coming, setting up your laptop and staying there for the whole day and buying six coffees because you haven't left,
Yeah. I'm
right?
buying a muffin, buying
Like,
a
so to me, it's like,
lunch.
why isn't the esports club, quote unquote, in existence, where it's about you getting a membership. You know, esports is happening there all the time, and you're gonna get, you know, TSM jerseys are sold here. This is where you get, you know, Steam cards. This is where you get your Steam cards. This is where you can buy, you know, real life
Gifts,
gifts. Like this is where you can buy like real life CS:GO knives. Like,
bobby heads,
the replica knives from CS:GO.
like
Um,
bobby heads, little like Dota characters with the bobby
Dota,
heads.
like I don't know, like I don't know. To me, maybe I'm just maybe we just came up with a concept that no one thought of, or you know, no one
It doesn't
like
exist yet to my knowledge.
like where's the EB Games of esports? Like where do I go to go buy, you know, the my esports paraphernalia? Where did I go buy my TSM jersey today? Like right now, my Nip chocolate bars. Like where do I go? Right?
Yeah,
And
that's
I
a
don't know.
good question. I have no idea of anywhere that you could go. It's pretty much all available online.
Yeah, of
That's
course,
it.
but I don't know. I feel like there's a level of value when it comes to buying things at a physical, like when you know EB Games
Oh,
has it, or
absolutely. Especially for these
like
things, you want to see it, you want to touch it,
you want to touch it, you want to put
you
on the
want to try it
jersey,
on.
like you want to put on the jersey, you want to know if it fits, you want to know if it's in your color,
Yeah,
like you buy your girlfriend one, like I don't know, like it's
especially
it's
for gift shopping.
especially for gift shopping. I just want to point that out. Like that's how I would run a venue. Like that's hands down how I'd run an esports venue. And I think that the esports content should be like a driver. Like it drives you into the venue and you stay there. You watch the international. You watch whatever it is at the venue.
Mhm.
But maybe you leave with, you know, a shirt. You leave with, you know, up some bobbleheads, some paraphernalia.
Uh,
You spent like $80.
I feel like
Just
there's got to be more to it than just merchandising, because merchandising doesn't usually rake in that kind of cash. But
no, like well, people spend still like ridiculous, stupid monies on like
yeah,
stuff, right? They,
that's
you know,
true.
it's like I think I saw at an event that happened very recently, and I guess actually we were kind of going overtime, so I'll get this wrapped up really quickly. That um, there's an event that happened at Hunter and Lucas, and they had Cloud9 hoodies for sale.
They did.
And I asked, yeah, they were selling Cloud9 hoodies for sale. And I said to myself, I said to them, I'm like, how much is the hoodie? And they're like, $90.
Seems
And I was like,
reasonable.
well, so okay, so that's what someone else said to me. I crap my pants, but that's because
Well,
I don't buy that kind of stuff. So it
what
was foreign to
right.
me.
When I
And so,
said seems reasonable, I didn't mean it wasn't overly priced. I mean, I it's as overly priced as I expected it to be.
oh, okay. Well, to me, that I personally am like I'm not ready to buy $90 jersey or I mean $90 hoodie.
No?
But apparently in the sports world, this is common. Like
Oh yeah.
a hoodie will be $90 because
Oh yeah. Easily.
that's that's what people expect from a branded hoodie, and people are not afraid. So I asked him. So I'm like,
Well,
obviously this is not
it's a
sold out.
specialty item. That's why it's not.
So I said to him like, how
It's
much do
kind of
you have
like
left?
Starbucks coffee. You could walk into a Tim Hortons, get a
Yeah.
coffee or a latte for $1.50, or you could go to Starbucks and buy one for $4. Why would you ever buy one for $4? Specialty item.
So like I asked him like, how much is left? And he's like, sold out. And
Yep.
I was like, wow, wow. So and Delcrum mentions that the Team Liquid jersey or jacket is $130. Now
Is that online or?
I online. And the jacket is beautiful. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not a super Team Liquid fan because none of the players I like are on that team, but
Yeah.
their branding is so beautiful. Like it's I don't know. They're one of my favorite. They're my favorite teams for branding.
It's
So
definitely a great, good-looking brand. Like there's no disagreeing with that
I'm
compared
gonna
to
say
some of
it's
them.
yeah. I'm gonna say it's just a beautiful brand overall. Just to correct you, Skillamaru, Tim Hortons does sell lattes now, as
Well,
of late.
they do. It's just a lot cheaper than like
Oh,
a $4
it is super
Frappa
cheaper than
Macchiato
my Frappa
extra
Macchiato.
zest and
Extra
like
zest.
if, like don't get me wrong, I enjoy a Starbucks coffee myself. It's not
I'm
like
gonna
that
start
with
ordering Starbucks coffees that way.
with
Can I get extra zest, please?
extra zest in mine.
Extra zest.
No, no, they do, but the point is like whereas Starbucks will have they have like these specialty items, right? That's
Yeah. Well, that's why they can mark it up because it's a specialty item, right?
yeah.
Okay, so let's get this wrapped up. I actually really like this was a really good discussion. That's one of my favorite things about this show is when we can have these kind of discussions. And I'm really in my head. I'm like, oh, I put it on my list, the bucket list of things to do in life is to open up an esports club, and and just have $90
Reckon's bucket
hoodies.
list of life.
Bucket list of life is an esports club. We'll add that into that, and also zest in my macchiatos. Get some of that. Um, sorry. So let's wrap up the show. Final thoughts, Tamir, on WCS current situation.
Um, I think that while personally I'm totally opposed to region locking, it might actually work for them just because StarCraft needs something different. I'm really not sure how it's going to work out, but you know what, they're trying, and with an organizer or a publisher based model to your league, I don't see many other options for StarCraft other than region locking it. I guess part of that is just because they've tried everything else.
You think they kind of just like, well, this is the last thing we can do.
They're like, look, we tried the other way. This is all we got. Okay, like we didn't really region lock it before. Now we're gonna region lock it. See what happens. Hopefully it's good. I think it can be good. I can definitely see the positive sides. I can see the downsides. Personally, I wouldn't want it in any of the games that I'm interested in.
I like how you
But
put
I
that
mean, for
together.
StarCraft, maybe.
Quick question too. Do you know if Arc Warden is like the Warden from Warcraft 3? Just I don't know if there's
Yes.
is that like is that the
He's
character translation?
well, no. Arc Warden was a character in Dota.
Who is he based off of? Is what I'm trying to get the like what character from
Um,
Dota
he
1 is he from
looks kind of
Warcraft
funny.
3? Does
He
he
looks kind of
translate
funny
to?
in Warcraft 3. I can't remember the unit's name. You could find them though. Um,
Is that the name from Dota 1 is Arc Warden?
Arc Warden. It's yeah, that's the name.
Okay, so I'll look that up sometime
Yeah,
later.
it's his name
And
is
if someone knows in the chat, they can definitely let me know. So final thoughts, Tamir, on Azubu getting $59 million.
Azubu didn't get $59 million. They borrowed $59
Borrowed.
million.
So
Very
true.
different than getting. They maintain complete autonomy of their product as a result, which I am in favor of. I don't think that they're going to be able to pay it back in any amount of time that their lenders are going to be happy with, however. Um, and, that's all right, like that's I guess it is what it is. If you're a Zubu, you got to be happy about it. If you're somebody that's lending them $59 million, I wouldn't be sleeping easy. Uh,
Just like you just be like, okay, you're just tossing and turning every day, waiting for that
uh,
money to come back.
yeah, I don't know if you're getting it back.
Not anytime soon. Um, so my final thoughts on WCS. I think it's a good thing. I actually really have been always been forward for WCS being region locked, because I believe the scenes really need uh, the ability to sustain itself in terms from a financial point of view. North America specifically. I think Europe is able to hold its
Right.
own a bit, but
That's like the one thing that I see as a positive. Like maybe finally they'll have like some incentive or rhyme or reason to really invest and try and you know.
I think that's really what it is. I think teams. This is the part I think is going to make the most is that teams will invest in team houses for StarCraft, like in North America, because right now what you do as a team is if you're gonna make that investment, you're gonna make an investment. If you're gonna get a team house, you're gonna invest in a team house in Korea because
Right.
that's what makes the most sense. Like from a winning perspective. So you're more likely to try to do a team house for StarCraft in well, you'll probably have other games too, but you're more likely to locate your StarCraft team in North America than you would Korea if you
Right.
have a system that favors heavily North American living people, right? So
Yeah.
that to me is the number one benefit of of this proposed region locking, and I hope for it. I am all in favor. Um, my final thoughts on Azubu. I personally do not. I've never been in a big fan of debt financing. If you don't have an actual business model that makes money,
Well, usually if you have a
um,
business model that makes money, you don't go into debt. Usually.
it's so true.
Just gonna
But
put that out there.
yeah, I accept that. But sometimes people get debt financing because their business model is just not working right now. So you're like, okay, but when go
They
back into
need
the
to
best season,
it's because they need to scale. It's because they're like, you
right,
know what, we
right,
need a factory, we need an office, we need a
absolutely,
warehouse, we need
absolutely.
distribution. You need those things. These are not the things.
I don't think Azubu is in that position, and I don't think they need a factory. This
No, they
is
need
debt.
content
And
and
I think
user
that's
base.
bad. I think that's bad for debt. Like obviously I've never run a company that has $60 million, but
Yeah.
to me, the use of debt to buy content, the use of debt to buy talent, it's I don't think that's a smart move. I feel like Netflix uses cash positive money to buy content, and that's
To
good because they're like
create they create content
they
too.
create. Yeah, sorry, they do both, right? They buy
And
licensing on content,
they've
but
made
that's
their
all cash.
platform appealing.
They made
Yeah.
their platform, right? And they have a business model. That's all cash positive though. So it's not like they're gambling, because to me this is a gamble. This is an Azubu gamble where they're like, we're gonna buy these people. I'm gonna
That's
hope
it. This is
we're
all
gonna
in.
hope. Yep, we're gonna hope that this means it. This means it. This is it. This is like if we get this. This is
We
a
make
win.
it.
Yeah, and that scares me. That's scary to me. I think that's like I have a good stomach for risk, and I have a good stomach to put myself in other people's shoes when they're taking a risk. But that scares me to make that kind of decision where you're like, I'm going to take in $59 million, and it's
Well,
not the amount; it's the idea of taking in money to test something that the industry isn't already going into. We're not going in the direction of content locking. You're making that assumption that since television does it, that we might do it too, and that scares me.
like it's like I said. Just imagine if somebody handed you $60 million that you have to pay back in X amount of time, and was like, build an empire, pay me back. What if your empire gets taken over, or shut down, or ravaged by hailstorms, or
That
tidal
hailstorm.
flooding, or who knows what happens, and you're in the hole for 60 million.
That's it. I don't know. So we'll end it there. I don't think I now that I think about it, it really makes me kind of weep for Zubu. I would put my money behind Hitbox only because they didn't take $59 million. And
Oh,
random note,
yep.
Azubu lost their person to ESPN very recently. ESPN just got
What
their
what person?
esports person. Can't remember I can't remember what he. I think he was like a managing director from Azubu. Now has been swooped away by
There you
ESPN.
go. $60 million invested into a stepping stone. There you have it. Any key exclusive. Wrap it up
Should
for you.
one day we're gonna get like an ESChamp, like an icon, like a flare, and it's just any key exclusive. Ja 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 ja. Um, we'll
Man,
work towards. Let's get 25 subs, guys, and then we can have one. That's all it
this
takes.
this
You
Zeus
too.
Arcana though. Damn.
All right, guys. So that's been another episode, another episode of the Any Key. Join us for our next week, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, for our last show for 2015 live. We'll all be in the same place together, which is super exciting. Doing the episode, it's like a prequel to the ESChamp House before it exists. So there you have it, another Any Key exclusive here next week. um, I think we actually already have our topic. Yep. So 2015 in review. Don't miss that. I'm excited. Tamir, where can they find you on the internet?
At Strygward, STRYGWYRD on Twitter. Otherwise, I'm pretty much unavailable. So go tweet at me there.
You can find me at Draconis pretty much on all places on the internet except for Facebook, which is facebook.com/DrakenBones. You can also that includes Snapchat, Instagram, um, and Twitter. If I already didn't say that, you can follow this channel at ESChamp and this show on um, iTunes and SoundCloud. SoundCloud for you Android people, and for you Apple fans, iTunes, you can pretty much get us anywhere, and you can find these VODs on youtube.com/ESChamp, where they should be up by tomorrow. You could probably quote me on that, I guess, because we've been pretty consistent with that. But until the next time, guys, see you next time at the same bat channel, same ESChamp time. Anyways, keep looking for the any key. Bye.
See you later,
Worst
guys.
sign off. That was my worst sign off ever.